Hey guys, so it's Friday. I'm going to try and go a little bit quicker than normal to wrap up as much as possible in one more video, but I have a feeling this might take a little bit longer, so we'll see what happens. So I'm going to start with sharing the screen. Okay, this is where we left off last time. This is stanza 1. We've learned some things about Prufrock immediately from this one stanza. Okay, he has obsessions. He's obsessing about prostitutes. He's obsessing about pollution or dirt, filth. He's also obsessing about sea imagery. So he will often use references to the ocean, to seas. So all of these are strategies which will appear throughout the poem. Okay. Partly, one of the strategies here for the intertextuality is to show you the mindset of Prufrock. Not Eliot, but Prufrock. So Prufrock is often thinking of classical literature, of classical education, high academics. And I said yesterday, we know he is of upper class. He's not noble class, he's upper class. So already you can see formulating a personality trait of this character. Okay. So that's stanza 1. Stanza 2 opens up simply as a couplet. In the room the women come and go, talking to Michelangelo. I love that line, or that couplet. I love it. It's got the right beat. It's got a nice rhyme. You can hear it in a musical refrain. It's going to repeat again. This couplet is starting a chain of logic about Prufrock and women in general, not just prostitutes, but women in general. So you notice it says, in the room, this undetermined room, in the room, women come and go, talking to Michelangelo. Michelangelo, of course, I hope you know, is the Italian Renaissance artist who did massive structures, massive sculptures, and the Sistine Chapel. We'll come back to that in a second, because it actually repeats again on the next series of pages. So that's a short, quick discussion. The next full stanza. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes. The yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes. Licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. Okay. Your first reactions are probably about the fog. You're trying to build a connection between the fog and Michelangelo. Okay, there is a connection, but at this point, don't force it. Okay. Likewise, don't try to see how stanza 1 immediately connects to stanza 2 and 3. Okay, it's a slow build-up. Once we get to the end, and you go back and reread it, you'll go, oh, so now I see the bridges. Okay, this is a poem that it forces you to reread it more than once. The more you reread it, the more you discover something new about it. There was a time for like 10 years, I'll say, a whole decade. Every time I taught this poem, I discovered something that I missed the previous lesson. Okay, so it will do that to you. It's a slow buildup of ideas, of analytical concepts. Anyway, back to the fog. So the fog is yellow. It's not white. White is clean, pristine, almost divine, let's say. But this fog is yellow. Yellow is dirty. Yellow is polluted. Okay? So it moves and transforms from a yellow fog to a yellow smoke, you'll notice. So from 15 to 16, Prufrock is being more specific. Okay. The fog is being presented to you as a cat. So that's called anthropomorphism. Okay? It's a cat-like creature. This in itself, the fog, has become another yonic symbol. Anytime Prufrock wanders in his mind about dirt and filth, usually it's attributed to prostitutes. So let me explain the chain of events here. You're talking about alleyways. You're talking about secluded city sections, like in the warehouse district, where women are wandering, and these women are the prostitutes. Now, the major connection here. The yellow fog is being presented to you as a cat. Okay, this is like an alley cat. Alley cats are feral. They're not owned, let's say. Likewise, there is the naughty schoolboy references that will be used when discussing about female anatomy. Okay, so that's the chain of connection. But again, whenever Prufrock starts wandering in his mind about filth and dirt, pollution, and soot, you see the word soot, somehow it will end up connected to prostitutes. What you could say is he's disassociating this filth from himself in looking at the immorality of others. Okay, in a sense, you can argue two ways. You can say, one, he knows he's filthy and he's immoral and he should change his ways. Or you could say he's blind to his own immorality, his own flaws, and he just notices in others. Okay? He picks up on it in others. And then finally, notice it is a soft October night. Again, this is not springtime. This is late autumn, turning closer to winter. October is known for Halloween, So again, this is not the typical love song. I'm checking my points out here down below. Oh, okay. One of the other, going back to the filth, the other major thing, Eliot, the poet, is actually making a point here about high art. Shakespeare and Chaucer are considered really high art forms. Yet, ironically, all they do is talk about the filth in society, how naughty people behave, how immoral people behave. So, in a manner of speaking, it's a commentary about how society elevates certain artistic creations, even though it's very critical about society itself. You could spend a whole 15-minute, you could spend a whole 15-page lecture just on that notion in this poem. I do have a note here about Hamlet's soliloquy regarding human nature. I'm going backwards in this case because you guys were not taught Hamlet last year. I'm going to go backwards. So at the end of the poem, there'll be a quick video about why Hamlet is important to this work. Okay, and then I'll give you an overview of Hamlet. So I'm going backwards. Okay, so that's the yellow fog. Okay, next stanza. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions. And for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of toast and tea. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Okay, now in these two stanzas, it's really obvious. This section, he's obsessing with time. Almost every line uses the word time. So if you compare this stanza with the sonnet by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, where almost every line mentioned the word love, he's using a similar technique here. You know this stanza is about Prufrock's specific obsessions with time. He does pick up on the yellow smoke one more time. He's not calling it a fog at this stage. It's definitely a smoke. But he's continuing the idea that this is a cat-like creature. Okay. He's also letting you know aspects of his personality. So in line 27 and 28, he lets you know that he's the type of person who can't just walk up to someone he knows and casually start talking. He's very introverted. He has to be prepared to meet the person. He has to be in total control in order to meet another person, or just to walk up to a person to talk to them. So if you remember a few days ago, I mentioned how he is always, at the beginning stages of the poem, he complains about being too much in control. This is another example. He doesn't like the fact that he can't just casually talk to anybody, a stranger or someone he bumps into. Everything has to be planned and scheduled. Now, specifically about this line 28. Yes, it does mention there will be time to murder and for creation. However, don't assume Prufrock is talking about himself as a psychotic individual wandering the streets and the alleyways looking for prostitutes to murder. Okay? Jack the Ripper was in the Victorian time period. Prufrock is not a Jack the Ripper character. Prufrock is too flawed, too weak, too broken of a man to be able to murder. So by the time you get to the end of the poem, you should see that concept. If you want me to talk more about this, let me know. Okay? But this is more of his obsessions with what happens in downtown districts of any major city. We know he's talking about London specifically, but on the other hand, he never says it. He never, just like the time period is not designated, the location of the city is not designated. So just keep that in mind. It could be New York, it could be San Francisco, it could be Paris, it could be Milan, Italy. I mean, it could be Rome, Italy. It could be anywhere. But Prufrock is specifically an Englishman in London. It's assumed, that logic. So what I said here, there's another aspect of Prufrock's personality showing up about how he can't make a major decision. He goes back and forth. You've got a time yet for 100 indecisions and for 100 visions and revisions. So he'll make up his mind to do something, stand up and walk out the door, and then change his mind and walk back and sit down and say, no, I don't want to do that. And while he's sitting there, he'll start regretting that decision, stand up and think about why he said no, and then try to force himself to go out. He'll go in and out, back and forth, back and forth. He can't make up his mind. The other major element, another motif is starting here. This motif is all about tea imagery, that high society English ritual of tea time, which occurs around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody takes tea, specifically in this time period of the early 1900s. So it was a social event. So even the working class had it, sort of like a siesta moment. So the working class had it, the upper class had it, the queen had it. So it's a unifying factor for the population. Notice that Prufrock is a little nervous about this tea event. Okay, so we'll continue with that strain of thought in a second. Okay, so that's that. Then we have in the room the women come and go talking to Michelangelo, the repeating refrain. This is the second and final time you'll hear that phrase. So as I phrased over here, line 35, what is Prufrock's obsession with Michelangelo? What could be Prufrock's point in bringing up Michelangelo in the first place? This is the 1900s, remember. It's not the 1300s in Italy. We're in 1900s London. And what is the relationship between women, not just one woman, but women, a clutch of women talking to Michelangelo? So if you look at it this way, Michelangelo was a major artist of the Italian Renaissance. He was a mover and shaker of the time period. He was a Renaissance man. He was involved with a lot of projects, political, social, and artistic. Okay. He was a renovator of the culture. If you think of the major artworks that he created, the one in particular that stands out the most here, well, there are two. There are two that stand out that you can use as examples of what Prufrock is worried about. One, you've got the Sistine Chapel with the vision of Adam and God touching fingers. God is creating Adam. If you look at the figure of Adam, he's a naked man. Nothing, no fig leaf. He's just lying there, fully exposed. A wonderful physical example of the perfect man. That's a painting, a fresco, in the Sistine Chapel. It's biblical. The other one that Michelangelo is really known for is the statue of David, which is a Hebrew hero who's standing, a giant figure of a man, again without a fig leaf, standing tall, an example of the perfect physical representation of humanity. He's not a divine element, he's a human element, okay, specifically of the male gender. Okay, so the women in this particular couplet are upper class women, just like Prufrock is an upper class man. So if Prufrock is in a room and two or three women, let's say 3 or 4 women, come in and they're talking about the artwork of Michelangelo, Prufrock is going to freak out. He's not going to be able to handle this. Mainly because he looks at himself and says, wait a minute, I'm not like the statue of David. I am not a perfect man. Okay? Furthermore, if the women are talking about Michelangelo's artwork, they're admiring the beauty of a naked, perfect man. It's almost, in a sense, like a porn element. Okay? So, Prufrock cannot see himself as being worthy of anything associated with Michelangelo. And therefore he's going to panic. Okay? So in a few seconds we'll have some more references that'll back up this commentary here. We'll get more specific examples from Prufrock himself about how he sees himself. He's very self-loathing. He is obsessed with his self-image, as a matter of fact. He's self-obsessed in a negative sense. Okay? So I didn't have my timer going, but I'm going to pause here, and I'm thinking really quickly. I'm going to stop the video here, and move forward with the next stanza. So see you in a few minutes.